I just say, I think it's like a career moment walking on stage to Beyonce. Like, this has just made it for me before anything else happens. But thank you, beautiful people, for hanging around. I know lunch is outside, but we are very excited to be here and talk about ourselves for the next hour, which I'm sure you're all just really excited to hear about. Join with me on stage. So Girls in Tech is a volunteer-led global non-for-profit. We are one of 70 chapters around the world. Here in Australia, we make up a community of 17,000 amazing humans in tech, not all women. And joining me on the board of actually bringing all of that together is the amazing Karen Katz, aka Mama Katz. We have Susan Brown, who actually brought Girls in Tech to Australia in the first place and started this whole damn thing for us, which is pretty bloody brilliant. And Vanessa Kelly also joins us on the board. So we're excited to be here today and share a little bit about what we do and why we do it. And before I kick off, let me just give a very warm shout out to the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation on whose land we are on today, and pay my respects to them past and present, and appreciate that we can continue to stand in unity with First Nations people and find ways to do that. And this is just a small token of being able to do that. Before we get stuck in, I actually thought we might start by just sharing a little bit of the why, because let's be honest, there's a lot of female networks out there and it's just like, okay, here's another one. And, you know, sometimes it can go a little bit OTT. We feel that too. But this is why we exist. And I thought we'd do a little bit of a quiz with you all. If you're ready, got a little bit of energy. I know you haven't got food in you, but let's do a little bit of a quiz. So starting off, what is the percentage of the Australian tech workforce that identifies as women? So we're at 48%, 35, 29, or 26? Answer is 26. I feel like someone's been to an event before. Correct. 26. And look, there's a lot at play as to why those numbers are so low. But I think it does really speak to the fact that women aren't taking on tech roles. As far as the Australian workforce goes, they make up 47% of the total workforce, but they're clearly not finding their way into these tech roles. All right, next question. What is the percentage of women in tech leadership roles in Australia? 22, 16, 32, or 24?
That really stumped them.
I know. Well, I'm just grateful she's not giving away the answers again.
Feel free if you know.
Oh, please. 16%. So certainly a very big challenge is actually finding women, one, to first come into tech, but then actually really build and grow their careers. 23% of women make up tech boards in Australia, so still certainly the minority. But when you think about technology and the fact that we're creating it for everybody looks a lot different than just 16% being one particular type of person. So we're really not having diverse voices into our emerging tech. All right, next question. On average, women are paid what percentage less than their male counterparts in Australia? Now, obviously, our Workplace Gender Equality Act is going a long way to really bring this to the forefront and bring this to the top of the pile to start this conversation. But across the board, women are paid 20% less in equivalent roles, which may be a reason why we're not getting them up in those leadership roles, because why would you? What percentage of women that leave their tech careers in Australia between years 3 and 4? All right, so we know we need more women in tech. They're starting, they're there. And in year 3 to 4, we're losing a good chunk of them. And I'm really keen to hear from you what you think or why you think so many people are leaving. Is it 35%, huge number, 22, 50, or 42? Survey says 50%. So they're starting, but they're not hanging around. Why? So the most common reasons why women are leaving their tech roles, and let's face it, it could be multifaceted. Is it a bro culture? Is it a lack of being able to see a progression? Which, let's be real, technology's changed so much. Often the roles aren't linear, and I think this is a problem that universally is felt of knowing how to get from stage 1 to stage 2 to stage 3 in our careers. But is that the main reason why women are leaving? Is it that pay gap we spoke about, or maybe the workplace culture? It's actually all of the above. 38% actually cited bro culture, which I think is probably one worth highlighting if we kind of think about our workplaces and maybe things that are happening and that we're going to touch on a little bit more in this session of just how that sometimes comes to the forefront. We don't always see it, but it's inherently there. And it's inherently there at such a rate. People would rather leave and start a new career than hang around and work through it. Now, getting down to the brass tacks of all of this and why we should solve this, like, great, but why solve it apart from making people feel good and, included and seen basic human needs? But let's just gloss over that for a second. What is the value to the Australian economy if we remove the persistent barriers for women and have a true equal participation? Like, they've done the maths. Does anyone want to take a guess as to what having gender equality in the Australian workforce would actually mean to our economy? $128 trillion. So if for no other reason, the bottom line is having that equality, that diverse voice, having women represented across the workforce is incredibly valuable to Australia and something that we want to address. So getting back to girls in tech and why we exist, hopefully this gives you a little bit more context. But we do this in a number of ways. We've all got day jobs. We've all got big day jobs, to be perfectly honest, but we give up our time to create events and to create spaces where people who may not have a community at work can hopefully have a community with us. And we really try very hard to make that as inclusive and as supportive and nurturing as we can. Because if you can imagine going to work and feeling like you can't speak up, how crap would that feel? And truth is, so many people feel that way. So we really try and solve that by giving them that community that can give them that confidence to boost them up. We also really want to encourage workplaces that are supportive of all of their employees equally. And we try and celebrate those and encourage conversations that will kickstart the right conversation to create more of those. And we call that intentional bravery, because sometimes speaking up and having that conversation about your workplace or about you and your career and where you want to go takes guts. It's really hard to talk about yourself. And so we really try and make sure everyone leaves an event that we host feeling more empowered than when we walked in. We actually had one last night, and I might stop talking for a moment and invite one of my lovely people over here to maybe just even share what that event was last night that would demonstrate how we do that.
I'd be happy to take that. So last night we enjoyed a new event that we called our Mentorship Masterclass. So we had about 80 women that we taught how to deliver their elevator pitch. So how to stand up confidently and sell themselves and sell what it is that they're doing and be proud of who they are and what it is that they are contributing to the workplace. And once we had taught them how to deliver that elevator pitch, we had 30 mentors in the room. So senior women in the technology sector who were very happy to spend time helping them with their elevator pitch. So pointing out what they could be doing differently, how they could lift, how they could then do everything from their language through to their body language. And then what we did was rotated people through the mentors. So they actually saw 3 different mentors. And I think the most fulfilling thing was watching them improve with each rotation of mentorship. So they had the opportunity to firstly get different perspectives, practice what they'd learnt from the last mentor to the next mentor. And the vibe in that room was just incredible. It felt really good. It felt really positive. And I think that the number of people that thanked us just for the opportunity to be able to take part in that, not only the people who we were teaching, but the mentors themselves. because it gives women a great opportunity to give back. So those that have achieved, those that didn't have such a great and easy path through, were able to give back and say, well, I didn't have it this way, but let me help you make it a bit easier. And that, I guess, is really part of the ethos of what it is that we do and why we're involved. I'm fortunate to be the mother of two amazing young women who have attended a number of Girls in Tech events, and to see them learn and grow, and to know that what we have done is forged a path that makes life easier for them, like that is probably one of our greatest achievements, I'd suggest.
No, I love that. And for me, the favourite, I'm trying to work out where to have this. There we go. The favourite part of last night was right at the end. We all got back into the same room together, and 7 or 8 really brave girls stood up in front of all of us and delivered the pitch that they'd practiced. That was lovely, but the amazing part was just the cheering and the shouting and the clapping for each woman. It was just such a warm and inviting and supportive space that really just encouraged them, because all we were doing was giving them the tools, right? They still have to go out there, meet strangers and do that. And I don't know, I'm an introverted extrovert, so I can come out here and do this, but it is really, really quite awkward to sometimes just step up to strangers and deliver, who am I and why should you speak to me? So for them to get that positive affirmation so that they've got a little bit more, self-confidence to tomorrow or the day after go and deliver it, their shoulders are a little bit back.
Yeah.
And if the sound in that room alone, I was deaf by the end of the night. So if that's how we judge volume.
And when you have a concert and there's that ringing in your ears, I had that feeling last night. It was energy high. But I think that's just one example. We've got 21 events this year. So that's just one example of how we really try and practice what we preach and make sure that everyone that comes can kind of leave that little bit more powerful than when they walked in. And perhaps, if I can ask one of you, if we really think about that impact of community and why we work so hard to create it at our events and the spaces, because sometimes there's not that at the workplace. Can you maybe share some of those workplace stories that you've heard or seen where, women have come to us looking for that and why they've needed it?
I'll kick it off, because I'd really like to hear from you. We come from a similar kind of a background, and I think one of the things that we used to hear in the early days when we started Girls in Tech, and sadly hear every single event, is how am I heard? I feel like I'm not heard where I'm working. I feel like when I step in and I speak, nobody hears me. And I think that's the piece that is one of the hardest things. You're talking about the bro cultures and stuff before. It's not intentional. Nobody starts a business and hires people to make them feel like they're not valuable. People don't do that on purpose. But that feeling that people have, women have, but people in general have when they step into a space and they can't be heard, is really, really difficult. And finding the tools and the support systems to know that you are valued and you do have the right to, the wonderful lady that introduced us, you have the right to hold space and take space up. Is really, really important.
Yeah, and if I would just add to that, it was a big deal for me when I started working professionally. So I started working as a digital project manager at a small agency, and it was in fact very male-dominated, from the engineers to designers to the other PM. So Girls in Tech is so important for me because I get to meet other women that are in similar roles to what I'm doing. So I would just add that as well.
I think over and above that, I've turned my microphone off because I cough too much. It's really that we have offered the ability to empower these women to take that confidence back into their workplace. The number of stories I've heard where, having been within a safe space and feeling uplifted, that women then take that into their workplace and they're more confident about asking for that pay rise. They're more confident to say, you know what, this doesn't work for me. What can we do to make it change? It's that confidence that we're equipping these women with to be able to be stronger in their workplaces. And I think that's probably one of the best outcomes that we deliver.
Not to challenge you all too much, but is this problem uniquely female? Doesn't everyone kind of feel this? How is the female experience of this feeling heard different from I can see you all perplexed and you'll all slap me later, and we normally just joke on stage, so they really will kill me. But there are how is the female experience of this different?
So it's interesting because I've had this many times. People have said this to me. And when I say people, men have said to me, I hear what you're saying, but I feel that too. So why is it different? I also want to feel included. I also get into rooms and I don't feel like that, right? And I think there's a couple of different lenses that you need to look at it through. You've got to go, there are layers of privilege. And even the four of us sitting on this stage have had levels of privilege that others around us haven't. And so you've got to look at the levels of privilege, and that has provided you with a platform, with an upbringing, with a voice in school, with a voice in university, with a voice in your first workplace, with that first job compared to you and three others that other people haven't had. So yes, you might feel the same, but the support system, the platform and the structure has not necessarily been there. So it's not only gender and women, there are others. We have people of colour, we have people who identify differently, and they are also in different situations. Girls in Tech, quite clearly in the name, we are women and we look to support other women, and I support all other institutions that support that. But I think it's really important for everybody to have a think about what are the layers of preference that you have received from the day of your birth, and then take that into account with regard to how you are right now and the roles that you have gotten to have, without realising that there are people that are equally deserving and didn't get that support.
I think as well what we hear so commonly is that there'll be in a team of like 20 or 30 people and be the only single female in that team. And, while it's not the intention of anyone in that team to make that person feel different, you just kind of are. And you kind of, that does create a different experience you have of being a team member when you are the only one in that group.
Well, when someone doesn't understand you and you feel like you have to explain yourself. So we talk too much is one of the things that we get, right? And often it's we're like, hey, I talk a lot. I'm all there. But sometimes a lot of the talking is to make yourself understood, because you feel like somebody doesn't understand you because the way that you express yourself. I remember the first time, it was many years into my career, that I was actually in a room that had more women than men, and how amazingly easy I suddenly felt it. And I couldn't understand it. I was like, this is the easiest meeting I've ever been in, because people are just nodding at me and they just get what I'm saying. And I haven't had to say the same thing in 4 different ways for somebody to go, oh, yeah, okay, maybe. Or somebody 2 minutes later said the same thing that I thought I said, and everyone was like, oh, yeah, that's a great idea, right? And I was like, oh, it must be the way I express myself. I'm not understood. So there's that little element to it. Like I said, it's very subtle, but is felt quite keenly if you're on the receiving end.
Speaking of subtlety, and Karen, I'm going to ask you this and you can say what you were going to say, but I've got to get it out or I'll forget what I was going to ask you.
I can't get a word in edgeways, and that is not a problem for me normally.
But how do you think some workplaces maybe don't create that equal space for women unintentionally? Like, what are the little things that actually happen, those subtleties that we talk about?
I'm going to backtrack first.
Please do.
Because what I wanted to say, they don't let me speak. I'm really shy.
She always talks.
Is that, and particularly in women in the technology sector, often also have other diversity pillars that they are wearing. So you'll often find that they are immigrants who have arrived here, who may have English as a second language, who are probably brilliant at what it is that they've done in their home country, and they're not necessarily able to be heard here because they don't know how to. And they don't know how to express themselves, and people are not taking the time to listen. And I guess what that does is sort of overlay to what it is that you're asking me there. As Susan said, I don't think anyone is hiring someone and then going, well, actually what you've got to say is not important, but they're not taking the time to listen. In my career, and I work in the human resources sector, I actually have an information technology degree from sometime last century, but that's another story altogether. But in the human resources sector, the number of people that I've dealt with who haven't been able to bring to the fore what their strengths are because they happen to be sitting within one of those diversity pillars. And the perfect example I have is of a young man, and you've heard this story before, when I joined a small company, and he was someone who was in a wheelchair. And I got to know everyone. There were only 30 of them, and so I took all of them for coffee individually. And I said to him, I've never worked with someone in a wheelchair before. What do you need from me in order to make life better? He goes, Karen, whatever I need and when I need it, I'll ask you for it. And I said, great. And not a few weeks later, we worked in this huge warehouse in Cremorne, and we turned up there and the lift wasn't working. So I said to him, when we happened to arrive at work at the same time, and I looked at him and he goes, well, I better fucking walk then, hadn't I? And it's like, right, what do I do with that? And so what we happened to have was there was a ramp up the back into a car park, but then when you got to the top of that ramp to walk in, there were a couple steps down. Now, he happened to be very skilled at the use of his wheelchair and sort of dunk down there, and I just went, I can't cope with this. What am I going to do with that? So I spoke to the building manager and I said, we have a problem. I said, we have a wheelchair person here who is unable to get to work when your lift is broken. Oh, the lift doesn't break that often. I said, I need a ramp on those stairs. And he said, oh, that's going to take a few weeks. I said, I'll be having a chat to the Fair Work Ombudsman about that one. And we had that ramp within a couple of days. And I think the moral of the story, for want of a term, is that we just got to ask, what is it that you need in the workplace? How is it that we can be more inclusive? How is it that we can actually accommodate what your needs are? Whether you are a woman, whether you have a disability, whether you are older, whether you are of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander descent, whether you are LGBTIQ+, it doesn't really matter what it is and which diversity pillar you sit in. But we've got to be asking the questions about how we can do better and how we can be more inclusive. Because there are so many quotas out there of we've got to hire this many women and we've got to hire this many people of colour and so on and so forth. Great that you get them in the door, but the job of what you're going to do to keep them is probably a bigger issue than the hiring in the first place. Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
That's how we feel every day when she drops her wisdoms on us.
Let's do coffee later.
So of the workplaces that, or maybe actually I'll backtrack. All right, so the gentleman who had the wheelchair, he said, when I need something, I'll just ask.
Yep.
Do we think the women are asking?
No, we need to encourage them and we need to ask them what is it that you need.
Yeah.
It's
But
impossible.
can we also not label them as being difficult or whingy when they do ask? Not you, but you know.
You know what? I think that what we do is we open the door and we say, when you need, let us know. Or we facilitate the opportunity to
But then act on the ask.
100%. Yeah. No point asking and then just putting it down.
No, it's the same thing as you do with an employee survey, right? Don't run an employee survey unless you're going to do something about it and act on it. It's the same thing. Don't say the door's open, ask me anything. And then every question has a great justification as to why it's not going to happen. That takes you much further back. If you don't want to solve it, don't ask the question.
Exactly right.
And it's a good question to ask everyone, but I know some people, whatever they identify as, are a little bit more comfortable in speaking up in the first place, but there's always those few who are too scared to ask.
That's it. It's the simple things like the unisex bathrooms. You know.
What are some of the workplaces that you've seen have really done it well? Like, can you actually speak to any experiences where you've actually seen workplaces play out the diversity role and just gone, God, they're doing it well?
I might speak to an industry very quickly because what everyone on this chair knows and is tired of hearing about, but that you don't, is that I'm very passionate about women's health and knowing that women's health has a major impact on how we can actually contribute to the economy. All of that money that is not going into the economy could, if we looked at more flexible policies and really focused and understood that women are not 100% of the time, but they can be if they've got a level of flexibility to be able to contribute. We can't meet the hours if we're not well. And so for me, if I look at the legal industry, interestingly enough, probably one of the most conservative, but the very first industry in Australia of all of the industries that implemented flexible leave that was not your personal leave and was not sick leave for if you were going through IVF. Because women that go through IVF actually get quite sick. And what was happening is they were first taking all their sick leave, that was gone. They were taking their annual leave in order to have a baby. And it's criminal, is all I'm going to say. And so for me, the fact that the legal industry turned around and went, actually, that's something that we can solve quite easily. There's a certain number of days that are set aside, and that's for when you are going through that process. And we will allow you a level of flexibility to work when you're feeling well in that process. Amazing.
Love that.
It's interesting because a lot of companies automatically think of parents and mothers when they think about that flexibility, and women will need leave not just because they have babies and not, they might have elderly parents that they're helping to look after. They might have a side hustle that they really want to work on, and they want some flexibility there. And those are conversations that they want to be having with their companies. But the ones that really need it are not only parents. Because we talk about the carers leave being, we're so flexible because we give you carers leave. COVID taught us a lot of lessons, I think, around what flexibility is and how loyal people can be if you trust them with flexibility, how much they give back.
Yeah.
I think a deep understanding though too. I know, like, who's been on holidays, they've gone away for 2 weeks, they've come back to work and you feel like everything's different. You kind of feel like you're out of the loop a little bit of like, oh God, this has all happened without me. And you're sort of catching up in your head a little bit as to what changes have taken place in the short space that you've been out. And I know when, you have a kid, you're going out for an extended period of time, and like technology completely shifts in that time. So the catch-up trend is actually quite huge. So even I think having some consideration and understanding for, that feeling that we've all had, but is so amplified when you're out for an extended period of time to, build your family and grow your family. You want to come back, you're ready to come back, but you kind of need that minute to catch up and get up to speed with all the changes that have taken place.
Self-confidence. But can I tell you what has actually changed some of that a bit? A lot of organisations now have parental leave, so the men can take time off as well, right?
They feel it too.
And what's amazing is they're coming back and they're really realising how hard it is after 3 months, 4 months, 6 months to pick up work again and to redefine who you are because you've changed. Right. And so what I'm seeing in my teams and in the workplace is those men have an immense amount of empathy and are so much more supportive of their whole team because they actually understand what that feels like. It's not just I hear you, it's I've felt that.
Vanessa, maybe I'll throw to you for this one because you started as a volunteer for Girls in Tech, and now you're one of our board members and has a huge impact on the organisation. But what led you to volunteer in the first place? What was that driver that got you started, which is the story for so many of our volunteers and attendees?
Yeah, so like many of us, found 2020 quite isolating and really missing that human connection, especially with others that are passionate about what you're passionate about. And that's what I found through Girls in Tech. I actually work at EY's, my day job, and we had the founder of Girls in Tech, Adriana Gascoigne, come speak with us. And that's where I first learnt about Girls in Tech Australia. And quickly I looked it up on LinkedIn and found that one of the previous board members I was a connection with, we'd done an internship together. And so during 2020, I got involved online as much as possible. We had some virtual events, and all into 2021. I mean, it was a bit less virtual, but it was still a massive component of what we were doing. And I think the 2022 conference that we had in Melbourne was it changed everything for me. I was a volunteer then as well. And I was mainly working at registering attendees, but it was just the vibe and the energy. It was unlike any. It's like all of our events, basically. I came quickly to learn, just magnetic. And I was like, oh, I found my place. This is definitely what I want to be involved in for the rest of my life. Yeah.
Yeah, my story's I went to the very first in a very dingy pub with this one over here who was going to start this new volunteer, very dingy, everyone, joined up as a volunteer, and I had my own company up until that point for 5 years. And I I was very young when I started the company. You wouldn't believe it now, but I was. And I didn't have a broad network of people who really understood business or were in the kind of space that I was in. And it was this like instant click of like, oh my God, I found people like me. And I reckon the growth I had in the 12 months following probably equaled the 5 years prior. And I think that's, that's really the secret sauce of community and a network in a professional way of what it can do and amplify for you. So, Susan, it was a very dingy pub in 2016. And now here we are in 2024, being one of the most successful chapters, having 17,000 members. We see so many of the same faces come back time after time, and they all, exactly like Vanessa said, talk about the energy and the vibe in the room. What have you seen the shift? How have you seen the space get built, and what need was not being met before it that you feel like we've actually been able to crack?
I feel like that very first meeting, so the pub gave us space. At that time, we didn't have much money, we didn't have sponsors, so we took the space. But there was some weird, heavy metal function happening below us, and we couldn't hear each other, and we were screaming across each other at the table, but it was great fun. But in that first meeting, the conversation that we had is we wanted to create a community. Any event we ever ran, we wanted to make sure that every single person had an interaction with somebody from Girls in Tech every single time, that everyone would feel welcomed and warm, because that's what I was missing. That's what I think you were missing.
Yeah.
And we wanted to create a place where that was there. We wanted to be inclusive. We didn't want to go, well, it's only for people who can design, it's only for developers, it's only for data, it's only for product, it's only for marketing. We're like, it's for people that are kind of in this innovation, digital space. If you associated, affiliated, you think you are, you want to be, you may be one day, you're a parent of one, you're in. And so let's be completely inclusive and let's make people feel connected. And for me, it's still the same thing. Last night I was tired when I got there. I was spent. And yet I got invigorated all over again just because everybody there contributes into that feeling of the community. And I think that's the space that we fill. We've all got work, we've all got, as you say, we've all got our own businesses that we're involved in and run. But to have that place where people have your back, where you've got someone to speak to, where you walk away feeling better than you were when you arrived, I think that's what we feel.
We lead by inclusivity. We really do. Everyone is welcome. It's a safe space. Everyone feels like they are part of who we are. No one stands in the corner on their own. Everyone is welcome to speak to anybody else, and no one's going to go, oh, sorry, not speaking to you. It's very special. And seriously, I couldn't be prouder if I tried, honestly.
And it's not about anyone. It's about everyone.
Correct. And it's not only for women. Like, we have a number of men that attend our events as well. And we love that. We love an ally. I actually had someone reach out to me. We've got an event next week in Sydney. And she said, I've got a 4-month-old baby. Is that all right? Like, is it possible that I could bring it? And I said, babies are welcome and you can bring that baby, but only if I get to cuddle it. Because that's the way it should be. Why should she be excluded because she had a baby? I mean, that's crazy. Bring the baby. We'll have cuddles. I'm in. I'm supposed to moderate, but baby can do that with me.
We've all brought our kids with us at various times. Our kids are different ages, but we've all brought them with us. They've all been involved. I've got boys. They know how to work Girls in Tech. They're all good.
And they all look great in the pink T-shirt, just saying.
They do. The bubblegum army lives on. Were you going to say something, Vanessa?
Oh, no, I just think, the safe space, like, that's Girls in Tech's unique selling point, I think, is just how safe. Like, last night we were talking about our mentorship masterclass that we had for people that have recently entered the room. Basically, we had some mentors, so women that are more senior in their careers in technology, and we had mentees, so people that maybe are going through a career change or just starting out in their tech career. And we basically taught them how to do an elevator pitch. And then at the end of the night, some of them came up and volunteered to pitch in front of everybody. And for them to do that, it needs to be a completely safe space where everyone can be as vulnerable as they can. And I just can't think of any other group or kind of, event where you can feel like you can do that. A lot of these women like I said, are starting out in their tech career. So even just to come to an event where they don't know anyone else is a big deal, let alone stand in front of a room full of people and pitch themselves or, whatever it is that they were trying to achieve, whereas going for a new job or that sort of thing. So I think that's really unique to girls in tech.
And when they take that courage and they then take that into their workplaces where they are helping to create that same sort of safe space and that sort of community within their workplaces, then we know we've really achieved.
We do. So we've got a community of 17,000. Our goal is to get to 25,000 by 2025. Would one of you like just to talk about some of the things that we're doing and what's ahead and the different ways people can get involved if they're curious to learn more about Girls in Tech and the type of things we do?
Absolutely. We have truckloads of events coming up. We started here in Melbourne. We've also permeated into the Sydney market where we are a regular fixture. We also have done events in Brisbane and in Canberra. And we are going to be heading over to Perth with Beer Ops. I don't know if any of you have done Beer Ops, but they've been kind enough to invite us as a community partner to Sydney, to Melbourne, to Brisbane and to Perth. So that's going to give us an opportunity to build some more community in some of the smaller cities. Our events range from our hackathon through to a breakfast around International Women's Day. We run our Power Skills panel, and in fact, if you'd like to join us on the 11th of July down in Docklands, we'd love to see you.
And how much is that event?
That event is free.
Oh, how much are generally our events?
Our events are generally free.
Oh, amazing.
Accessibility to what it is that we do is actually really important to us. So we work with our sponsors to be able to deliver our events to you and free. And usually if they're an evening, then there's usually wine and cheese because we like wine and we like cheese.
Our sponsors are amazing.
And our sponsors are fantastic because they feed us the wine and the cheese, which means that they're feeding you the wine and the cheese. So the Mentorship Masterclass was an event that we do. What else have I forgotten that we've delivered over there? Oh, Career Kickstarter, where we're doing that for the entry-level people, where we give companies the opportunity to pitch their wares. We give them 5 minutes to tell you who they are, what they're about, what's amazing about working for them, basically delivering their elevator pitch to you. And if they go for more than 5 minutes, we kick them off with a standing ovation because we think that's a really nice way to get someone off a stage.
My favourite part of that, though, is that you can go and get your profile photo and advice on your social media and your own sort of LinkedIn profile on the same night, so you can get yourself all ready to get that job.
100%.
And we love that one too. Like when the companies go and pitch, like how often do you get to see under the hood of other companies when you're not necessarily looking for a job and actually hear from them directly? And just that chance, like if we know so many women between years 3 and 4 are leaving their careers, why wouldn't we show them, kind of give them that opportunity to evaluate, oh, that's interesting that workplace offers that. Mine doesn't do that. Or my company does this differently. And it's just that chance to actually see what else is out there in a way that's really safe and non-committal, and they get to sit back and listen. And as Susan was mentioning there, that's one part of the event. The other is almost, we call it our big market hall, but every single stall, of which there's about a dozen, have got some kind of takeaway value to help you get ready for that job. So it's a profile photo, it's LinkedIn page advice, it's interview tips, it's resume feedback, it's support in getting a visa if that's your personal situation, you need help. So by the end of that event, we hope that you can leave job ready and looking for that next thing with a little oomph in your step as you go.
With an introduction to a number of companies directly who are very, very interested in you.
Now, another big fixture of Girls in Tech is Mama Cat Says, and there's always a few rules at events that you guys get to impart to today, because you should take them with you into your day to get the most. You've given up the time to be here, to learn, to be inspired, but what else should they be doing?
Network. Yeah, as we say, your network is your net worth. We're very encouraging of people to build their networks whenever we see them. I often tell people that if you need to leave with no less than 10 new LinkedIn connections after you've been to one of our events. And it works. Actually, a number of people after last night who sent me a note going, I have my 10. It was like, that is cool.
I got that too, actually. You're my 6. I'm like, okay, 4 more. Off you go.
No, go hard. That's what we say. So that's actually really important, I think.
Yeah. What do you think the future holds for Girls in Tech, Susan? What do you think will look like in 2 years' time, 3 years' time?
Do you know what the great thing is? I have no idea. The other thing that I love is we've got amazing, fresh energy constantly coming through, both on the board and as our volunteers. And what that means is we have new events and new ways of engaging and new things to do. I am loving being on the ride with having so many really talented, really clever, really wonderful women doing these amazing things that I would never have thought of. So I'm really excited to look back and go, wow, I didn't know we'd get here. That's what I'm thinking.
Love that. Vanessa, how about you being those young, fresh eyes? What are you sort of looking forward to in the future for Girls in Tech, and what do you hope the impact is that we can make?
I'm just excited for our events to evolve and evolve. I mean, already this year we've introduced so many new events. So like the mentorship masterclass we had last night, and even the career Kickstarter, which has been such a success. We only started that last year. So just starting up these smaller events with more of a specific purpose, not just targeting those new in their careers, but also senior women in technology, because we have found that there is a need for those events where we're actually for senior women in tech, and they are really loving that. Whether it's the dinners or even the mentorship masterclass that obviously they involve and impart their wisdom in those. So I would say as the events evolve, I'm excited for that and to be part of the strategy behind that, obviously.
I agree. I think it's actually been one of the biggest lessons in the last 2 years is just seeing we've had so many senior women come to events, and truth be told, they're going through their own unique set of challenges like we all are. And they kind of need that space and that, peer group that they can actually, share those stories of like, oh my God, that hot flush that I had. Yeah, no, that happened to me in this meeting. And just having someone who gets it in that unique and special way in that professional environment is so powerful and empowering. And the conversations that this leads really inspires so many of the events and the things that we're doing. But I guess my call out to all of you is we'd love to hear from you and kind of your experience of diversity in the workplace. And at the risk of no one might raise their hand, would love to sort of throw to questions. Or has anyone here been to a Girls in Tech event? Maybe I'll ask you one to start
They've
off
got the
with.
crew there. They were there last night. Awesome.
Can I just say Paris was one of our amazing mentors last night who raised her hand, and she encouraged one of the girls who had come along to do their elevator pitch. Her experience was she'd been looking for a job for ages. She can't get it. It's been really challenging. She's been applying for jobs, not getting cut through. She encouraged her to record her elevator pitch and to post it on LinkedIn. Now, I asked you all in this room, would you do that? Because her face did exactly what all of our faces did. Like, oh my God, I can't do that. She did it this morning. She did it. And I reckon if we got nothing more out of that event but that one move, it was pretty bloody incredible. So, speaks volumes. It's really hard to see, but does anyone have any questions for us?
Just yell it out. That'd
Yeah.
be cool. Yay.
What's your next event?
Oh,
Melbourne
yes.
or Sydney? Melbourne. It will be one of our power skill panels. I'll be moderating that one actually. The sponsor is ANZ, so it's at their head office in Docklands on July 11th. I would recommend, if you love what you've been hearing today, to follow us on LinkedIn, Girls in Tech Australia, and we'll actually be posting that event later today as the tickets will be going live. Free tickets though. And we'll be talking about the 4 main trends in data according to a Gartner article. So betting the business, managed complexity, empowered workforce and building trust, touching on all those areas. And I'll be speaking with the head of home loan data from ANZ, head of data at AFL, Elisa Kosh, and Rose Skandari, who has just left her job at BP, but it was head of data there, and she's also a university lecturer as well.
I think what I love about our power skill panels is they really humanise the different elements of tech, and I think put it in a context that anyone can really understand and kind of make the connection of like, okay, my skills apply there, or this is how I overcome it. And to be perfectly honest with you all, these Power Skill panels actually really kickstarted after COVID. And something we were noticing, particularly in the Melbourne community, but to be fair, nationwide, was that we had gone from being very tech heavy of like, Python and technical and more that kind of learning base to it was the soft skills that everyone felt like they were lacking. And so I guess my shout out to all of you is if you've kind of felt that way of like, God, I've forgotten how to talk to people, or it's a different feeling when we're in meetings. You are so not alone, and mastering those soft skills, we now call them power skills, hence the name Power Skill Panel. And we really try and bring the human side and the soft side to all of the topics with a very heavy tech lens at the same time.
The other thing I'd leave everybody with is also to follow us on Humanitics. So you can find us on Humanitics. That'll have all the events in the different states. So those of you that travel, there's always an event running somewhere that you can also join in on. So if you hop onto Humanitics and follow it, you'll get the updates. And you can also even start joining on wait lists, etc. Because unfortunately, we tend to sell out our tickets. Well, sell is lightly because it's free, but we tend to the number of tickets are limited and they tend to disappear within a couple of days of them opening. So you can get on a wait list and get them first.
Very true.
Absolutely.
And yeah, we always encourage you to expand your LinkedIn connections. So feel free to find any of all of us if anything has been of interest and you'd like to discuss more. And we're also got a booth out there. You'll notice us. We have a bright pink neon sign, which I've noted at least 7 people have taken selfies with already this morning. It's a bit of a thing.
It is a very big thing. Like, you haven't seen us if you haven't taken a photo with the sign. It just doesn't count. The QR code is there on the screen. There are details there about everything that we've just mentioned, alongside a Slack community that's actually really active and building and growing. It's something new for us, so keen to get people participating in that. But thank you all so much for hanging around and listening to us talk, because we could do it for hours and hours. We're very appreciative. But 10 LinkedIn connections, everybody. That's your homework. And come and find Girls in Tech and ask the people that you work with what they need. That's it. Thank you all.
Thank you.